Am I the asshole? For making a scene calling out bad behavior on a field trip? I went on a trip to the Holocaust Museum with my sociology class. We are studying genocide. We were walking through the exhibit and near me these two sorority girls in my class were gushing, squealing over this upcoming mixer with some fraternity, and I give them the dirtiest look and am like, really? You guys can't wait like 2 hours or something till after we leave this place to have such a conversation? Haven't your parents taught you any manners? Show some respect, FFS. Apparently our professor heard the whole exchange as I was louder than I realized. I was horrified at the disrespect. She disagrees with the girls' behaviors but thinks I caused too much of a scene. Using their ages as an excuse, I said I'm the same age as them and I know better. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. Acting poorly in a Holocaust museum should always be called out. The professor should have done it herself. When poor behavior is given a pass, it continues. Not the asshole. Their behavior was disrespectful and totally out of place. Also, you weren't loud on purpose. Calling them out was appropriate here. Not the asshole. I would understand the behavior if it was like a science museum, but it's the Holocaust Museum, a place that commemorates the darkest chapter of the 20th century. Calling them out was the right choice. The fact the professor scolded you for this is just ridiculous. The thing is, when you yell at people much louder than they originally gushed, you become much more disturbing to others than original distraction was. I am saying that because I have seen that a couple of times. And while majority of times I was able to ignore original issue, the scene was impossible to ignore and it spoiled the experience more. I was not there, so I do not want to judge, but just consider there might be something of teachers' feedback. ESH. The girls were being disrespectful, but yelling and causing a scene is also disrespectful. You don't want the cure to be worse than the symptom. I have been to libraries where there are kids not being loud and they are not bothering anyone, but the parents are bothersome. They shush their kids loudly over and over again. You sure this isn't why the professor admonished you more THSN them? And why bring up that they are sorority sisters? ESH, they were being disrespectful, but considering how loud you spoke, you were disrespectful to the people around you as well. Are they assholes? Yes. Are you an asshole? Also yes. ESH. I'm betting you were more distracting to everyone than they were. This just sounds like virtue signaling. Don't care much for sorority girls, do you? Kinda TA. You overfunctioned here. Listen, you were probably in the right, but execution-wise, maybe could have been more discretion. Regardless, no good deed goes unpunished. BTW Sociology was one of my favorites classes in undergrad. You're guilty of the same thing. You accused them of being disrespectful and making a scene. You only think you're better than them, but you're really not. You're the asshole. You made a scene and drew attention. That's disrespectful. More people probably heard you going off than heard anything the girls said. You must be fun at parties. ESH. They were not screaming and running around, or taking selfies, were they? You thought their behavior was disrespectful, but they were not disturbing others. You, on the other hand, with your yelling, certainly was. You're asking if you're the asshole for inserting yourself into someone else's conversation and then making a scene and disturbing people around you? Yes. You're the asshole. You're in public, people are allowed to talk to each other about things other than exactly what you're looking at. It's not a movie theater where the social agreement is to be quiet. From the way you describe it, you overheard a conversation and decided to be rude about it. ESH, you shouldn't have made a scene by raising your voice like you did and probably calling more attention to their behavior. However, they were completely out of line and your professor should have calmly called them out. Not the asshole. There are less and less social norms and repercussions for bad behavior. Speaking up is a part of society. Getting into a screaming match in the middle of a museum especially, that one would have been too much. but you reacted properly. The teacher is striving for control, not quiet, MHO. As a professor, I'm surprised they got involved at all. You all are grown people, both being disruptive, emo. But I can't see myself intervening and admonishing one party. You're an adult. If you don't agree with your professor's assessment of the situation, disregard it. But emo, you were part of causing a scene. ESH. You're the asshole. If they were that disruptive, the professor would have corrected it. Sounds like you were just eavesdropping and are jealous, and wanted to virtue signal. ESH. Do you work there? You also made a scene, so you're no better. Where the girls are, sure. But you were a bigger ass for taking an opportunity to grandstand and show your moral superiority, being actually disruptive and causing a bigger scene. My advice would be, get over yourself. You're the asshole. Yes, what they were doing was disrespectful, but it feels like in your righteous indignation you lost the plot and focused more on voicing your moral superiority than on not being disrespectful yourself. Bit hypocritical if you ask me. You're just as bad as they are if you called them out not only at the same volume but louder and more aggressively. No excuse to cuss loudly at the Holocaust Museum. I visited the Holocaust Museum as part of a school trip for an extracurricular. Pokemon Go had just come out. Bet you can guess what some people spent their time doing in there. ESH. Obviously their behavior is disrespectful and abrasive, but you yelling at them probably didn't help the situation. A better course of action would have been to go inform your teacher. I went to the Holocaust Museum in a middle school field trip and even we all understood to be quiet and respectful. ESH. Maybe you should have been quieter when calling them out so you also weren't being disrespectful, but it was good you called them out. So really it's not the asshole for calling them out, but you're the asshole for being loud about it. ESH. I don't know how you can feel anything but despair when you're in the Holocaust Museum. It was silent when we were in there, with the exception of a few people softly crying. I was choking back tears the entire time I was in there and couldn't fathom some of the things I learned. How these ridiculous girls were giggling about Greek life in a place like that is beyond me. However, you had no reason to blow up like that. Screeching at people is really disrespectful in a place like that. ESH. But you're honestly not doing yourself any favors by trying to be their mum, and it's not really your place to discipline them. Edited to change verdict. Was it really a scene or was the professor just embarrassed? I find that people are more and more uncomfortable with confrontation, and any amount of speaking up is considered a scene. ESH. Best way to have handled this would have been to quietly, yet sternly, reminded them of their surroundings, and tell them to square themselves away. I have been to the DC Holocaust Memorial Museum, and I would have been more aggravated by someone yelling at two people gushing over a party, than the two people gushing over the party. While they were definitely acting in an immature and vapid way, you cannot claim moral superiority here, because you also disrupted the solemnity of the space. You're young, so you're not the asshole, per se, but learn from this and be better. Edit changed incongruous tense in a sentence. You're the asshole, mind your own business. You're the asshole, why don't you mind your own business and stop being a teacher's pet? I agree with your teacher, you were disrespectful the moment you yelled. Had you said exactly what you said in a calmer voice, you wouldn't be the asshole. But for the way you communicated it, you're the asshole. I didn't know having a conversation was a bad thing. If you have low tolerance for PPM, maybe you shouldn't be on field trips. You must be the conversation cop or something. I feel like you're the a-hole for not minding your business or just walking away from them. You could have maybe handled it better, but I'm surprised by the amount of people saying ESH. Someone needed to call their behavior out. Not the asshole. I mean seriously, I've been there. They literally tell you to keep the talking to a minimum and to be respectful. Talking about going to a party is the opposite of respectful, and your actions were justified.